Hi, I'm Jacqueline Raposo of www.thedustybaker.com. Gluten-free and allergy-alternative recipes can be a little bit frustrating and can make for one very, very messy kitchen. But I hope my updated classics and fun flavor combinations show you that with a little bit of mess, a lot of fun, and a whole lot of love, even a dusty baker can produce delectable results. Here we go. Gluten-free pumpkin chocolate chip cake cookies. Here they go. I love these cookies because they are light and fluffy and chewy, a cross between a cake and a cookie. They're not crispy at all. They're moist, and then they're dotted with this beautiful semi-sweet chocolate chip. Drives me crazy. So they're also extremely easy to make because we've got wet and we've got dry, and we pull them together and we stick them in the oven. Easy peasy piece of cake. So here we go. We've got a cup of brown rice flour, a cup of arrowroot starch, all of that in there. Get in there, starch. A half a cup of millet flour, beautiful golden millet, and a half a cup of quinoa flour. Now I've done this before with a full cup of millet flour. Quinoa, it sort of has a little bit bitter of a flavor to it, but it's really high in protein, which I love. And for a cookie that's going to have the strong taste of pumpkin and chocolate, or if you're using something just with chocolate in general, a brownie or a chocolate cake, quinoa is a great flour. It just gives you a little bit more nutrition in your flour blend. So I'm going to start mixing those together. And then I have 1 teaspoon each of baking soda and baking powder. Always easy to remember when it's 1 and 1. Half teaspoon of salt. I'm using table salt, but I normally use kosher salt in cookies because I like to have a little bit of that actual salt bite to it. And then a teaspoon of cinnamon, which for some reason is stuck. Come out, cinnamon. Go on my cookie. And then I say about a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, but I like to grate my own nutmeg. So I just sort of give it a healthy, like a third of the nutmeg or so. Oh, it smells really good. For some reason, this reminds me of Thanksgiving or carving pumpkins. I love it. So there we go. There are my dry ingredients. So that's the equivalent of 3 cups of gluten-free flour. If you're using a store-bought gluten-free all-purpose flour mix, cookies are rather forgiving. A cookie like this comparatively is rather forgiving, but I like to blend my own flours, both for the health benefits and so I know exactly what my consistency and flavor are going to be. And because this is a hearty pumpkin and chocolate cookie, it can take some heavier flours. So in my mixer, normally you cream butter and sugar together, but because we've got so much pumpkin, we're going to have a lot of lift already, I'm throwing everything in. So I have a half a cup, that's 1 stick, of unsalted butter at room temperature, a cup of white sugar, a 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar. If you only have light in your pantry, just use light. It's not going to kill it. 1 egg, then I'm going to take my favorite baby whisk, and I should have put it in a bigger bowl. If you weren't watching, I would have just kept it in a little bowl and spilled a little, but for you, I'll put it in a bigger bowl. So that's going in there too. And then this entire 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree. I've never used this one before. I liked the look of the can. I'm an easy sell. So there we go. So it's just 100% pumpkin puree. It's not pumpkin pie mix. That's already going to have sugar and spices in it. This is just pure pumpkin. Let's see. Easy peasy. That's all in. And I'm going to start creaming that all together. I'm going to give it a good, I don't know, minute and a half or so since I just threw everything in. And I want my butter to disperse evenly. I want my sugars to sort of melt into it a little bit. My egg to gain some volume. So now that it's starting to mix together, I'm just going to scrape down and let it go for a minute, minute and a half. There we go. So now everything is in there. The butter isn't quite all the way into, you can see there, the pumpkin and the egg, which is fine. It's going to come together once we add all of our ingredients, all of our dry ingredients. So I'm just going to plop them all in. It's such a forgiving cookie. I'm sure there are people out there that would tell me I'm doing something wrong, but you know what? They taste so delicious when they come out. So I'm going to start that again on slow. It's starting to come together. I'm going to stop it and scrape to make sure all my flour gets in there. Start it up again. And as soon as it comes together, I'm going to speed it up a little bit. There you go. So now the flour is not going to fly anywhere. I can speed it up. I'm going to scrape it one more time, and then I'm going to let it go for about 30 seconds or so. And there we go. So now, just have a nice thick cookie batter. Oh, it's fluffy, beautiful. I'm just going to make sure everything is in there. And now I've got 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. I'm just going to toss right in. You can use more chocolate chips at this point. Other options, you can throw in some nuts. I've done them with some ground pecans before. You can also stir in an entire cup or 2 cups of oatmeal if you want to make oatmeal pumpkin cookies. But I want you to see the texture of these just as a cake cookie. This is going to make about 3 dozen cookies. So my oven is preheated to 350 degrees. And then I have my cookie sheets lined with a Silpat. That way it doesn't stick. It's this beautiful liner right here. You can always use parchment paper. I just like these because you don't have to throw them out. But you do want to line these with something. And then I'm just going to use a cookie scoop to equally portion them out. Like that. Perfect. These are going to get nice and fluffy for us. So I'm going to portion them out, and I'm going to bake them for around 16 minutes. They're going to come out pretty soft, so I'm going to cool them almost completely on the cookie sheet before I remove them to a cooling rack. Especially, it's great to have the parchment or the Silpat so that they don't stick. But because the heat disperses so evenly, they're going to be a little bit soft. These cookies keep really, really well for a couple days. They seem to almost taste even better the second day because they're a cakey type of cookie. Everything sits together. And if you don't, they're not going to spread that much, but if you want them to be ball cookies like this, you can stick them in the fridge for 15 minutes or so that the butter hardens a tiny bit, and then they'll spread even less. Now I'm going to put these in just 1 sheet at a time. My rack is in sort of the middle lower third. In about 16 minutes, did I say? Yeah, 16 minutes. I'm actually going to flip them halfway through, so in 8 minutes I'm going to flip them through, and then we'll have our pumpkin cake cookies. So my gluten-free pumpkin chocolate chip cake cookies were in the oven for 16 minutes. After about 8 minutes, I flipped the pan around. And what you can do if you'd like is just take a spatula and flatten them then, just to take a little bit of the air out of them. I did that when they came out of the oven, so they're still light and fluffy. And so if you look at the top of this one, see it's nice and little crackly on top. And I'm going to open it right up, and look at that. They are wonderfully moist, spongy, just enough chocolate in there for our gluten-free pumpkin chocolate chip cake cookies. Yay. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Jacqueline Raposo. For more gluten-free and allergy-friendly recipes, join me at www.thedustybaker.com. Thanks.